mountain. First of many that we're going to see. Really tall, dark, cloudy day. We hope before we leave that the sun shines. Here to the ocean, it's 150 miles.
Geological feature there. It's called a glacier cirque, or glacier bowl. The glacier cirque is what is left behind by an alpine glacier as it melts and retreats back up over the top of the mountain. It's a very large U-shaped valley. Looks almost like someone dropped a giant bowling ball in there. In fact, this very defined glacier cirque that is directly off the left-hand side, about 9 o'clock, you can still see the very top of the glacier just underneath that snowpack there. The blue shows in definite contrast to the white snow around it.
Okay, these are killer whales. They travel in a pod. They're going from left to right in front of the boat. The male is the one with the largest and most... There we go. That's the male there. Now the bow area is going to be open here in just a second, as soon as we can get a crew member up there. He'll be welcome to go up there and take photographs.
Open the bow here.
Seems that there's one male and 3 female killer whales. A male killer whale can have a dorsal fin that sticks out 7 feet off its back, and it's more triangular, and the female has a fin that curves off towards the back. I'll tell you what, they're heading for Whittier. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a kind of a loop here. We'll pass them again on the left side. And we're going to proceed up College Field. And if we see them on the return trip, we'll stop again for them.
Wow. That's great.
There they are. Yep.
Oh. Oh, there, get it, Jane. Oh, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Now, whales traveling what's known as a pod, sort of like a family of them. You can tell the females by their more back-swept dorsal fin, and the younger ones are smaller in size.
Great. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
There. Oh, boy.
For 5 or 6? 6.
Oh, it's amazing. We're getting so close to them.
Well, in case there is, I'll set another one. There you go. We're right on top of them.
Well, they were right in here, but they've probably gone.
Really?
That looks like an all slick right.
That you all are on a boat, and we will be moving, and have a handhold ready as we walk about. And you want to get ready here because we're going to go by some sea otters. Side of Barry Arm is going to be to the left, down another 10 miles at Harriman Glacier. We want to go to Harriman Glacier first today because it is usually the most active and the best looking glacier. We're going to go there first, spend some time there, and then with it comes right. All kinds of traps laid out on there. Please also keep both feet on the deck.
I think everybody's on this side of the ship. We're coming up on a cave that tells us that this is what a big purple light
Just some camping going on there, directly about 10 o'clock. Saw that big splash in the water. Please step down on the deck while you're on the bow area. Thank you. Let me tell you how wide and long and deep it is. From left to right, it is about 2 miles, and the glacier face above the waterline is 250 feet, and the portion of it that you do not see is below the waterline, goes down to about 310 feet. So we have almost a wall of ice here which is about 600 feet tall. Kind of keep an eye in that direction. We've seen a lot of calving. And when the glacier calves, it's like thunder. It sounds like cannon shots. River, and it's formed about the same way a river is formed. The only difference is that rivers are formed by rainfall, and glaciers here are formed by snowfall. And they just come down the mountain. The only difference is that a glacier is a frozen river. And we also call a glacier the bulldozer of nature, because the glacier face itself is like a blades of the bulldozer. And as it comes down the hillside, it bulldozes in front of it a great big pile of rocks. And that pile of rocks is below the waterline, and that is what we call the terminal moraine. And over on the left-hand side, the glacier, you'll notice how black it is. That is what we call the lateral moraine. And that is where the glacier grinds off the sides of the hillside and turns it into powder.
The glacier silt. That's what shakes flowing around on a windy day.
The glacier directly in front of the
glacier
boat
silt.
a hanging or an alpine glacier. You can see the waterfalls cascading off of it. And this is called roaring glacier. There's something else you might want to notice. In the close proximity of the glaciers, you'll notice you don't see any trees, but little shrubby kind of a growth. And scientists are very interested in this kind of growth because they call this succession. As the glacier recedes, it leaves behind it very virgin land. The scientists want to know how and what kind of plants first take root, and then how and when the trees come. You'll notice some birds flying around here with very pointy tails, pointy wingtips, white. These are Arctic terns. And they've come a long way. Some of them come from as far south as the southern tip of South America. Which means that all the air has been driven out of this piece of ice, and this is very hard ice. In fact, it will take 4. And of course, it also is 10,000 years old. And another thing, this is the purest form of water on planet Earth.
They do this to protect themselves against the bald eagles which live around here. See, 5,000 kittiwakes can take on one bald eagle. That's how they protect themselves. Strength in numbers. If you'd like a closer picture, you might want to head down to the bow area and get a picture from down there. You want to stay in the earth for long enough for people to rotate on the bow so everyone will get a shot.
Put it up again.
Can you get in there too?
We're both going to go home and look at the dictionary.
I think it is spelled, you know, either way.
It's 11 o'clock in Anchorage. It's 3 o'clock in Massachusetts. That's 11 o'clock at night. I'm taking this from the hotel window.
It's still growing, Joanne.
Okay, thanks.
People on the seat. If you should leave to go downstairs to eat or whatever, please put them on the seat if you don't take them with you. A lot of times people will take their cameras down to the dining table with them because you're going to see some wildlife and some beautiful scenery here. Speaking of scenery, these are the two guys. And this is about 8,000 feet. It's Bashful Peak. They call it that because it's always covered from clouds. You can never see it. We're going to be seeing some great scenery, some of the finest scenery in North America today. In the very back of the car, we're very glad to have them here.
Besides, they bring a lot of money.
This is also sort of the nerve center for all of the Air Force operations all over the state, and thus for this whole quadrant of North America.
We had a love affair going.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alice. And he got up and put a jacket on. And most of them really
And then about 20 years ago, somebody took this same melody and wrote it instead of a kind of sarcastic song. Wrote something like this. Well, let me tell you about the story of a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day. He put 10 cents in his pocket, just his wife and family was right on the MT. And did he ever return? No, he never returned. And his fate is still unknown. Yeah, he may ride forever in the streets of Boston. He'll never return. Charlie is the man is down at Scully Square Station, and he changed his heart to make up the lane. When he got to the back, the told him one more nickel, Charlie couldn't get off that train. Okay, your part of this is, and did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever, neath the streets of Boston. He may ride forever, neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. Okay, let's try it. Did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. Yeah, he may ride forever, neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. 1,049 miles from Anchorage to Nome, across some of the most rugged wilderness in the world. Much of it's impassable during the summertime. It's only because it's winter, it's frozen. There's a lot of bogs and so forth. And the people go across in dogs. And those of you who have followed it know that in recent years it's been dominated by one woman, Susan Butcher. The year before that it was won by Libby Riddle. Susan Butcher finally lost this year, but I imagine she'll win a few more times yet. She's got a lot of dogs. She's a real fine athlete, a real fine person. The chili went too well. In the northern lights got snow and the ice and Scully did a rock trail. Well, give me a team with a good big cup. Said it's been so fine. After run those miles, no 1,049. So when I get back to my home, I can tell myself, I did, and they did a rock trail. That's your part. When Hobo Jim recorded this song, he took a team of husky dogs into the studio with him, but this afternoon, you're the only husky dogs I've got. So whenever you hear me say, I did, and they did right, I want y'all to howl like a pack of husky dogs. Do you think you can handle that? How about you folks down here? Do you think you can howl like a bunch of dogs? Oh, pretty good. Let's try it. I did, and they did right, y'all sound like a bunch of Fort Lauderdale poodles. Let's do this with Rissorel Machismo, okay? I did, and they did it right, Trey. Alright, well, the race won't be easy for the masters of the trail. And some of them will make it, and some of them will fail. But just to run that race takes tough and hard and brave, and a lot of work done by the Diddly dog said the smell so fine. Let me run those miles, snow 1,000. That's where the mountains, the snow layers will just scoot on down when the stress becomes too much. The worst time for avalanches is in March and April and the early part of May, but mostly around April. And we here in Alaska will usually lose a couple of climbers every spring who think that they know the mountains well enough to be going out into them. It's a very dangerous time of the year to be up there because the things are starting to warm up, but the mountains still have snow. But as I say, if you want, that mountain right there, you can see pretty much where the avalanches will go each year.
Anybody says that's a beautiful animal is crazy.
So I'm a little surprised that it wasn't a lot greener than this indeed.
This is the time. Sorry.
Right there.
That's little green lens comes out.
So look at that. Antlers.
You're not getting any.
I did all right on the Canadian trip. Now.
No, see the island is
I got it. It's the island in the snow. Okay, that's a good
Gray wolf.
And the wolf spooked the bird. There's a large strip of snow coming from the ridge line. The wolf is almost to the very edge of the widest part of that strip of snow.
There he goes.
He's going into the widest part of the snow now.
right out. See? That was a big
Long, long line of snow. One big piece of snow. Right in the center of the world.
I've got two pictures now.
He's right opposite to us.
I keep clicking to
Start no avalanche.
I don't think any fall, you.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's been pushing the book.
We're looking at Mount McKinley. It's on the left side of the screen, white, low in the clouds. Is the tip of Mount McKinley. That's all we're going to see today. Clouds are low. Only patch of blue sky. So we're going to
Has it been exciting?
No, we're the one
Oh,
right
you're
behind
behind.
you. Just behind
You
you.
did get to see those sheep then.
Yeah, we did.
On the road,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, we didn't see the
see the sun shining on the face of the mountain. It's not a lake that we're looking at. It's a riverbed. Glacial deposit. It's where the water is. It's straight ahead in the center of the screen. It's a gold mound. And it's a grizzly bear. He's disappeared behind a bush. Can't get in any closer.
It's Fort Thomas and Johnson.
Can't see him with my glasses. You can't just. Oh, can't find it.
Hard to find them out in the middle of balsa brown. That the bear out there was
Look at them.
Well, they're pretty good size.
Oh,
Yearling. That's the closest we've been. They have black feet and a black nose, black face.
The mother and two cubs.
Yeah, they're yearlings. They're last year's cubs.
Last year's cubs.
You can chase them out for another spring.
Yeah. They're pretty good size.
You go to the circus in Russia? Yes. See the bears, they never get down on all fours. It's really...
we can't see.
Yeah, they're actually a year and a half old. They were born a year ago in December.
Why is this so light?
I know it. I can't get over the color.
There's that one over there. One in the middle there looks like a big woolly sheep.
Doesn't it?
The family's yard just about 2 miles upriver from here. And that boat carries 150 passengers and only draws, fully loaded, just 2 feet of water. Flat-bottom boats, what they use that this part of the country. Now a little later, when we come back this way at the end of our trip, we made arrangements for one of our very, don't know, maybe anytime today, one of the people who live along the river might be.
You know what it's going to look like?
We'll point out a lot of the houses.
They're scanning on the other side of the boat.
One thing to keep in mind is that everything houses that are located there are summer homes. They're all year-round homes.
That's going to come out real good.
The river. Origin of this river, about 100 miles back up to the left, all those glaciers. Now it looks muddy, but that's that ground up rock, and it never gets any clearer than this. Yukon River. Now the Yukon is a clearer river, so what we see at that point is another New Chilliwack, where the two rivers meet. See that on the right? Yes, there will be fish in this river. Now they don't live here, but they migrate through this river from the Bering Sea up into the Chena River. The salmon have not arrived yet, but they've already begun. They're already on their way. Fishermen down the south part of the state are already, I think, catching them. I'll tell you more about the migrating salmon. Beautiful story, fascinating. But this is the Tanana, and as you can see, it's a dramatically different river. Nothing like the little drainage stream Chena. Look at the difference between the right and left. On the left, sandbars. You know, just even 3 years ago, this boat used to be right over where that sand is. That was the route. But the current of this river is so strong, it keeps grinding out the right side there. Dramatic erosion. Maybe 50 feet of riverbank a year disappears from that side. You see, at that much loss, that's why people put those tires in and things to try to prevent that. But believe me, nothing we've ever come up with to this date is as strong as Mother Nature. Look at that. Permafrost under there. You notice there's no roots down in that clay? It's hard as a rock, frozen solid. As that does get exposed to the warm air and sun, it eventually does thaw and big chunks fall into the river. Taking the trees with it, cabins, anybody standing on the edge. Those dogs are back in there. You might see the sled. Caribou, moose, bear hides. Good morning.
Oh, I can't see. Oh, okay. I just can't see.
Welcome to the old Chena Village. We picked a nice hot summer day to be out in the river. It's a pleasure to share dog sledding with you. I've lived in Alaska for 24 years, and what I love best about living here is taking these dogs for a run in the winter time. So I thank you for giving me a good excuse to take them for a run on a summer day too. The best way I could really show you just what's so wonderful about dog sledding would be to meet you out on the snowy trail. I put you in the basket of the sled. I stand on the runner's back, and we both hang on for dear life the first couple of miles. The dogs love to tear out of the dog yard, full speed ahead, and after a few miles they settle down to a trot, and they average about 10 miles an hour. Then you and I can relax a little bit. The trail's pretty no matter what the weather. Sometimes it's blowing snow and cold. You have your hood up, your Parker ruff pulled in around your face. Other days it's clear and sunny, and you just ride along and smile back at the sunshine. I'd like to introduce the dogs to you. This is my #1 lead dog. He's 9 years, he will be 9 years old in July. His name is Schnitzel. He's the brains of the outfit. As you can see, I don't have any reins attached to the dog. It's just my vocal commands that hopefully communicate what I want to do. Since I'm standing here in front of the team, I'm not going to tell you the command to take off over the microphone. All 7 dogs are waiting to hear that word. There's a lot of power here. They all start pulling at the same time. They can break the rope that's holding the sled to the tree. Sometimes dogs are a lot like children. You have to spell certain words you don't want them to hear you say out loud. The command to take off is H-I-K-E. Turn to the right, I tell my lead dog to G. To turn to the left, I tell him to haw. I want the team to stop, I tell them to whoa. Most of the time they're real good. They stop when I ask them to. If there's something to chase, a moose, a porcupine, a fox, a squirrel, they don't even listen to what I'm yelling from the back of the sled. And I've dragged behind that sled more miles than I care to remember. Hopefully today I won't demonstrate the dragging technique for you. Next 2 dogs in line are called swing dogs. They help swing the team around corners. Our smaller dog is a female. Her name is Flopsy. Her partner is little Joe. Next 2 dogs are called team dogs, and the one closest to the water is only a puppy. He's only 11 months old. He's named Captain after Captain Bigley because puppy has almost as much energy as the captain does. His partner there is Jay, that's Joe's brother. 2 dogs in back are called wheel dogs. They're usually your largest, strongest dog. They have to break the sled free when you have a heavy load in the winter. Black and white dog is Jack. Brown dog is Uproar. These are large huskies. They weigh anywhere from about 70 pounds for Flopsy to 90, 95 for the 2 fellows in the back. So these are real large dogs. These are what we call freight dogs. They're bigger than almost all the other racing dogs, but they do take me on one of the long distance races, the Yukon Steppes. That's a 1,000-mile race that goes between Fairbanks and Whitehorse over the Yukon Territory. We find on the long races the dogs work best if we run them 3 or 4 hours in a stretch. Then before they get real tired, we pull off the trail and let the dogs rest for a few hours. We're traveling day and night around the clock, and the dogs adjust to the schedule pretty well. They just roll out in the snow and go to sleep. That's what the musher would love to do, but you have some work to do first. The most important thing is to get a lot of food and water to your dog. Of course, to make water, we melt snow, and the snow in the interior is very dry. It takes about 20 gallons of snow to make 5 gallons of water, so it's a pretty long process to make the water, but it's critical for the dog. After you're done feeding the dog, the musher has something to eat, and most mushers cook their food at home before the race, wrap their meals in tin foil, let them freeze. They'll stay frozen right along in your sled. And when it's time to eat, you warm your dinner up around the campfire. Frozen burritos were popular with mushers, and they put them in their shirts to let their body heat thaw them out as they were going down the trail. A friend of mine had a lost burrito for 4 days. He stood around in his shirt, down his pants leg. I'm sure it was quite thawed out. When you're done eating, you stretch out on top of the load in your sled. You're only going to sleep for an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and it's time to hit the trail again. So you need to have an alarm ready to wake yourself up. Mushers will help each other out if you're in trouble, but if you're just taking a nap, they'll go by you just as quietly as they can. I think we better go before Jack gets everyone riled up and they go without me.
He knows his own name. He knows when he's being talked about. They're excited. They like to go any time of year. Of course, winter's easiest, but they like to run today. Now, Mary goes to each dog and makes sure that they're not tangled. All the catches are secure. Plus, just the extra attention is appreciated by each dog. Now, notice, though, they get quiet. Look how they lean into their harnesses. Their ears are back listening. Watch the power when they take off. Dig in, chest down to the ground. Woo! Around that tree. They're really pulling hard when they take off there. Break that sled loose. Real fast pace at first. You notice the one that jump-started ahead was the puppy. She always puts the puppy next to an experienced dog so they learn. Good look at dogs. You know, when it is 30 below, which is just perfect for them, and there's snow on the ground, they can really go fast. They can go for hours. You'll notice some of the dogs have already changed their gait. They're now at a trot. That's the pace they'll go at for a long time. I don't know if you can hear, but Mary constantly talks to them, very softly, G and Hop.
Back in the winter, I'd love to take you for a ride. It's the best part of Alaska.
Thank you, Mary. Go to the inside. What she said.
And right behind me is a grizzly bear hide. And in our culture, the young women are forbidden to eat bear meat until after they've had their children and they've become grandmothers. And here we have the moose with the hair side and the skin side out. And in front of that is the tanned hide of the moose. And what they usually do to kill a moose is they take the shoulder bone of the moose and brush it up against the brushes to make it sound like the moose is walking through. The antlers are rubbing against the brushes. And once they've attracted his attention, they provoke him into a charge and get him to rear up like a horse. They'll take their bone-tipped spear and have that moose impale upon the spear and roll out as fast as they can. Otherwise, they'll be dead meat also. And once they've done that, they skin the moose and leave the hair and the fleshy bits on it, take it back to the women so that they can process it. And what the women will do is take this tool, which is the shin bone of the moose, they split it down to a sharp edge, and they'll take this and rub it on the fleshy side to remove the fat and the flesh bits left on there. And they do not waste any part of the game that they get. So they feed that to their dogs. And this here is a more modern type of this tool with the metal tip. The women to this day still prefer the bone tip because this metal is a lot sharper and it tends to tear and poke through the hide. And next they'll take the shin bone of the caribou, split this down to a razor sharp edge, and rub against the grain of the hair to remove the hair. And what they'll do with that hair, because they'll get the rawhide. They'll have the raw. Yikes! And then once that's dry, it's pretty hard and somewhat transparent. Okay? And from there, they can either process the hide or store it for later use. And if they do, and another thing that they might also do is cut that hide into strips in what we call babish. And what they'll use this for is fasteners, because once this is wet and they fasten it and it dries, it'll hold that position for the life of what they make their tools with. Okay, and if they do decide to process that hide, what they'll do is get the brains from the moose, ferment it downwind from the village or their camp, because once that's fermented, it gives off an awful odor. You don't want to smell that. Okay, and once that's fermented, they'll take the hide, soak it in that solution, rinse it until the water comes clear. They'll drape it on a horizontal pole, and they'll take this, what we call a clavas, but it's similar to the Eskimo ulu, but it has the serrated edges here. And what they'll do is take it and scrape against the hide and soften it and stretch that hide. Once they've stretched that hide, it'll have a whitish color to it, and they'll drape it over this structure here, made of willow poles, or any type of poles, and just drape it over the structure like this, and build a smudge fire made from rotten cottonwood. And that'll give it the orangish color that you see on this process, this tanned hide over here. And if they do decide to sew, when they decide to sew with it, they'll take the the ligament from the back of the moose, the sinew, and when this is wet, when it's starting to dry, they'll rub it so it'll break it up into string, and then this is how they store it for later use. And when women sew, they usually put it in their mouth so that they'll have it nice and soft. And this for sewing, mostly for sewing. These are usually for sewing. And from here, we'll move on to the next stop, and you'll see more the samples of what's made from the moose hide, the processed moose hide.
In there, and then he bends them on that curved contraption there. He just lays them flat and he slowly bends them. And then he fills them up with some of the babish that Sherry told you about. The rawhide strips, and he just laces them in with babish. It takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do that. Oh, they're made out of birch. I forgot to mention that. And also he made that raft canoe, if you'll see over that gray canoe. Is it over there? Yeah, that's a raft canoe. That's used mainly in the springtime to hunt muskrats in the lakes and the small streams of the interior. And Bella tans her own moose hides in much the same process that Cherry described to you earlier. So some of the moose hides are tanned. You'll notice the tan side is a lot darker than the other side that wasn't facing the fire. And here we have our tan caribou hide. It's a lot thinner and a lot more supple than the moose hide. Really soft. Thinner and more. And these are some of the boot tops she's made. You'll notice in this moose hide, it's sewed onto the moose hide. Actually, it's sewn onto a piece of felt, or straight onto the moose hide here. And these are, the way these work is you have your boots and you just decorative pieces right up on top here. And here we have some slippers, and this is a slipper top here, and this will go on just like this other one here. Everyone can see it. And this is trimmed with beaver fur, moose hide all over here with a piece of felt in the back. These are a pair of mittens here, made out of moose hide, trimmed with beaver, and there's lots of beadwork on here, even on the thumb. Really nice. All yarn with beads for the yarn herself. The beads were introduced by the missionaries and the traders of the earth by the turn of the century, and they traded furs to get the beads and also the supplies that were introduced. And this is a very rare sight to see outside of a museum. This is a gun case. Very elaborate. Bella made this for Simon. You're a lucky man if your wife makes you one of these. Also made out of your moose hide, and the fringe is made out of caribou. And here is a really beautiful piece of work here. This is the work of art here. This is your baby doll. Notice a lot of beadwork on this. It's quite sensitive. What is that? It's a baby doll. Okay, what you do is you tie your baby in a blanket in your back, and sometimes you tie the blanket in the front, and then what you would do is you tuck this under the baby's buttocks, and then you tie it in the front here. That would leave your hands free, and baby would be in the back here. really pretty. The maidens would use it as a belt until they had their own children. This here is a young maiden ceremonial dress made out of your moose hide, trimmed with your beaver, and it has centellia shells and pieces of ivory and caribou antler buttons here. See that? You'll get a chance to get a closer look at it later. One of our guides will be modeling this on the ship. And Simon here is going to model the chief's jacket. This is a chief's jacket, also made out of moose hide, trimmed with your beaver, with caribou antler buttons, and dentelia shells. Very beautiful piece of work. Hold it. Hold it.
Oh, look at that.
Nice warm day for them.
Out of your way.
Okay. It takes them to do? A very long time. It takes a lot of work. We have to get moving, but at the end of our tour we'll have 10 minutes and you'll be free to come back and ask them any questions or to take a closer look at any of this if you'd like.
I have a short talk that might answer some, excuse me for having my back to the people back here. I have a short talk that might answer some of your questions, and at the end of your tour, please feel free to ask more questions. First of all, I should explain this is not the way you usually keep dogs in the summer. We just moved the dog yard here last week, and we're on permafrost. We tried to pound the stakes in, and we hit ice about 2.5 feet. I got one pipe in fairly well that I put the puppy on, but I need something more secure for the big dogs. Usually they each have a long chain so they can run around more. These dogs are huskies, and by the term husky, I mean just a northern mixed breed mutt. No poodles, no cocker spaniels. It's not that mixed of a breed. Just the dogs that have been part of the North pulling sleds for the last 100 years. I couldn't get in the front door of a dog show with these dogs. They don't have AKC papers. Luckily, I don't want to go to dog shows. I want to go down the trail through the woods, and these are the best working dogs I've ever had. I've raised all these from puppies. I've been breeding this line for about 20 years. I'm looking for a nice tall dog, long legs so they can break trail in the deep snow, good tough pads in the bottom of their feet so they can run 100 miles a day on a race and not have their feet wear out. If we come across some rough ice or very crystalline snow, we put booties on their feet to protect the bottom of their feet, not to keep them warm, but to protect the bottom. These will last about 50 miles, and you have to replace them. Of course, you have to put them on with your bare hands, and at 4 feet a dog, 10 dogs in a team, on cold weather, that's a pretty difficult chore. It makes for a lot of frostbitten fingers, so it's best to breed dogs that have the right kind of feet so you don't have to use too many booties on the trail. I need dogs to grow a heavy winter coat. The huskies have a double coat with stiff guard hairs and a soft downy underfur underneath. They're just beginning to shed. This downy underfur is what really keeps them warm in the winter. It takes them 3 to 4 weeks to shed out. They'll be a lot more comfortable by July. Hopefully it'll be good because the temperatures will be up in the 90s in the afternoon. They are outside dogs. They camp out at 40, 50. This year, 60 below zero. In the winter, their dog houses are smaller entrance, so it really conserves their body heat. Put a lot of hay in the house so they can make a little nest. During our cold snap this winter, I increased the amount of fat in their diet to give them more fuel to keep the furnace going at night. I didn't run them much when it was below 40 below. The cold air coming in their throat can frostbite the back of their lungs. They want to go and they can go, but unless you really have to do something, you usually wait till it gets a little warmer just so you don't take a chance of injuring them. I want dogs with a gentle disposition. I don't want to worry about biting people or getting in fights. I let them all loose so they can run around, play together, keep their relationships on a friendly basis. When the little puppies, when I have little puppies, they run loose among the big dogs. Of course, the puppies roll over on their back and are real submissive to the adults. And then they kind of work their way into the family of the team and get accepted by the big dogs. And I don't have problems with them fighting. These are work animals. I can't afford to feed this many pet dogs. They have to pull their fair share when they're in harness. I try to give them a lot of affection. I play with them. I let them loose. I bring them all in the house. They're real nosy. They like to come in and see what's going on. Our house is a 14 by 14 foot cabin. You bring 11 big dogs in. It's pretty cozy inside. They're not real comfortable. In about 10 minutes, they're panting. You have to let them outside. They really are outside dogs. Some of the work that they do, they haul in the firewood to heat our cabin. We have a place about 30 miles west of Fairbanks where we spend a lot of time in the winter, and the only way we can get in and out to the cabin is with the dog team. They haul in the groceries, the dog food, the kerosene. They make our life there real comfortable. I do my writing there. My husband is a woodworker. He has a little shop there. It's a real precious lifestyle that Alaska allows people to try. I don't take it for granted for a single day. It's a privilege to live out in the woods and have a lot of space and peace and quiet around you. We have a little creek that flows by. I put some pails on the sled, run the dogs down to the water hole, and then the dogs haul the heavy load of water back up the hill to the cabin. That's what I call running water. Trade it for anything in the world. When we built the cabin, we cut the trees down out in the forest, and the dogs skidded in those big green spruce logs. They weighed 200 to 300 pounds apiece, so it was a help to our backs to have the dogs helping to pull them in. I like going camping with the dogs. March is my favorite time of the year. That's springtime in Alaska. The sun's high in the sky. There's trails all over the country. In the daytime, the temperature usually is up above zero. At night, it might get 20, 30, 40 below. But we take a small canvas tent or stove so we can get a fire going in the tent. And it's quite a comfortable way to camp. No grizzly bears, no mosquitoes, no rain. It's just the best time of the year to camp as far as I'm concerned. My husband and I have been traveling cross country with our dogs for about 15 years. We go for a month, 6 weeks at a stretch. Can't carry that much dog food in two sleds, so we mail out dog food before we leave to the post offices in the villages along our way. And then when we pull into town, we run the dogs up to the front door of the post office and go in and pick up the mail that's waiting general delivery and pack the sleds, and we can go for another couple hundred miles. One of our favorite things to look for on trip is little hot springs. And I don't mean hot springs with swimming pools and hotels, but just natural springs that bubble up out of the rock. Some places they're just 10 or 15 feet big. One year we were northwest of Fairbanks. The air temperature was about 30 below. The water temperature in this pool was 120 above zero, just steaming up out of the water. You know where we were? We went for a swim, and it just felt wonderful. When you stood up, you got cool pretty quick out in the cold air, so you just went back underwater and warmed up. You could try some new hairdos, spikes and curlicues, and your hair would freeze solid in about 2 minutes flat. That was kind of fun. I like going on races with the dogs. I've been on the Yukon Quest in 1984, 86, and 88. That race changes directions every other year, and I like to go in the years it starts at Fairbanks and goes to Canada. This past spring, I just went on a trip, went up toward the Brooks Range, or into the Brooks Range from Fairbanks, and had perfect weather every single day of the trip, and met some wonderful people that live out on the trail, and saw some of the wilderness that Alaska is fortunate to have a lot of still. 1974, I went on the Iditarod race. It's also a 1,000-mile race from Anchorage up to Nome. And I didn't win the Iditarod. Libby Riddles is the first woman to win in 1985. Susan Butcher has won the next 3 years. She came in second this year. I'm real proud of both of those women. They've done wonderful things for the sport of dog sledding. Back when I went in 74, I was the first woman just to complete the race, and that was cause for a little celebration back then. The only trouble was it took us 28 days to get there. I didn't think anyone would even remember we were out on the trail, but Nome really keeps track of the mushers. Whenever a team is sighted coming into town, they turn the fire siren on, so there'll be some people to come out and give them a welcome. Well, we came in about 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't think anyone was going to be awake, but we just came up off the pack ice and turned down the front street of Nome, and off went the fire siren, and hundreds of people came out and gave the dogs a real nice welcome. Right under the finish line, a group of women from Nome were waiting. They had their big fur parkas on, and they had a banner stretched out over their heads. I couldn't read what it said till we got right in the finish chute. I should have known what it was going to say. It said, "You've come a long way, baby." Nice after 1,000 miles on the trail.
Myself, I'll be your guide in the last 2 stops. My name is Sharon Atla. I'm an Athabascan Indian. I was born in the village of Tanana, which is downriver from here. This is the Tanana River. If we would have just kept on going downriver, we would have joined up with the Yukon River, and right at that point is the village of Tanana, where I'm from and where my family is from. You'll notice I'm kind of pale. My dad is a white man from Texas. I always tease that my mom and dad were out playing cowboys and Indians. And I did grow up here, mostly here in Fairbanks and in Tanana. I just graduated from the university this winter, and I'll be my first year teaching this winter out in one of the villages around here. And Teresa is going to school also. She'll be student teaching this fall and then getting her degree in December to go back home to her region to teach also. Oh, well, I'll say it all over again when I get a chance. But we're just gonna, we're so excited and all that way, Teresa. Is that the salmon?
This building that you see before you is called a smokehouse, and it is not a place to light up your cigars and celebrate the birth of your child. It's a place to smoke fish. The smokehouse is made out of spruce logs and birch bark. As you can see, that there are antlers up there, but that is just for decoration also. Generally, you see these doors before you. They don't have doors on top. These were put there just for your convenience to look at the smokehouse. The way the fish end up in here is they catch the fish through the fish wheel or by netting, and they cut the fish's head, the backbone, the viscera, and the eggs. And the viscera is boiled into a nourishing chowder for the dogs. And the leftovers are thrown into the river so that it can attract more bottom fish. And the fish are scored and exposed to the sun, the surface as much as possible, and dried on those racks. They don't dry them there completely, maybe like 2 to 5 days, and then they take the fish from over there and put them in here. They never used to have salt used for carrying, but now they do only for humans. They don't put salt on the fish when they are fed to the dogs. Now they use salt and brine for carrying and also for taste. After they are smoked, they are put into that baling device, and the bale usually is about 30 pounds to a bale, and they are tied with twine or wire and then put into that cache. It's not a place to store money, it's a place to store your fish. And the way the smoke, the fire, it drives the air out of there and also the moisture. It is also a good way to keep flies away. And the kind of wood that they use is cottonwood. I don't know if I forgot one. Oh, there are different ways they cut fish. It falls away from the skin when they fall away from each other when it is hung on the racks, and sometimes they make strips. I like the strips better. They for some reason they taste better, even though they're of the same make. And the fish wheel, I don't know if they introduced it on the boat, but it was from the Chinese. It was invented by the Chinese about 2,000 years ago, and introduced by the Western culture when they came up here. And the Indians got the idea from them, and that is how they catch fish. And that is not their original invention. It's borrowed from the Western culture. Is there any questions?
Do you debone them or fillet them first?
We fillet them first, yeah. We take all the bones out. Nothing is wasted. The leftovers are fed to the dogs, and the heads are dried, and they are also fed to the dogs. With the humans, they are taken more care. We don't mishandle it because we'll be the ones to eat them. These are about 2 or 3 years old, and ours is more recent, besides the years. Is there any other? How long? If you store it and And if it is kept dry, it can last indefinitely, as long as it is kept dry. And out of the little...
And over there at Simon and Bella's, when we get done with circle.
I got one picture of him.
Schnitzel.
You're welcome.
Schnitzel.
I'd love to take you for a ride. Come have a card. I don't know if it's in this park or sorry. I had about 10 people that came back, yeah. I have some cards that have my address, but I'll just stay here. If you want to just go in that little shed, there's a red car pile up in the pocket. And just let me know ahead of time when you're coming. So nice. Most Alaska thing you can do, I think. Thank you. Well, now, who are you? I've been looking at you over there. Oh, here. Oh, right here. I looked at you when you came by the first time. I was thinking you were Nancy from Mushy Magazine, and I just couldn't. No. Good. This is my sister Lynn. Nice to meet you. Where are you from? I'd love to get her picture. Good place to be away from visiting. Be careful. This will kind of catch you. No.
When you were saying how nice it was to be out away from everything, I was like, give me pavement stores.
Oh, well, golly. What's up there? This is the first time I've been here.
I want to go in there.
Wonderful for the dogs. You know,
Look, oh, Tate.
He's a ham, this one here.
We'd love to get your picture with one of them.
I'll get your video at home. I told her. All right. Okay. I really shouldn't have too many people in here. A couple at a time is fine. They all want to be pet, and if they start jumping around, it points.
How do their toenails hold?
Their toenails?
They hold up okay?
Clip them a little shorter in the fall, so they don't get caught.
They do grow constantly, and so that you don't really have any problem.
Usually they wear them down from running.
Yeah, and they grow fast enough so that they don't get little nubs.
I'd rather have a few that I can spend a lot of time with.
I know that you had 7 dogs in your team today. I gather you vary it depending upon what you
Right. I couldn't get around those corners with much larger of a team. I might just take 4 if I was training. If I had a heavy load, I might put 10 in.
How about the Iditarod? How many?
On the Iditarod, you can't start with as many as 18 a day. I started with 8 the year I was 18 something. They're much smaller dogs. Usually they drop a lot of the dogs along the way. Yeah. Yukon Quest in the permafrost.
Oh, that's good. Oh, okay.
This is a ham here. He's waiting for someone from Hollywood to discover him. Bye-bye. It's nice to meet you.
Can you hold this while we take your picture?
Never done this before.
Well, I don't need him.
No, you don't want me.
I can hear you from back there.
Okay, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Bees in the wilderness.
You can understand, both the president and the Pope had survived being shot at. So they were very serious about their work. The Secret Service came up days ahead. Dark glasses, sober expression, short hair, and little wires coming out of their ears. But it was exciting. Oh, and the big black limousine.
Oh, it's wonderful. But also they put down some steel mesh in the driveway temporary so they could drive that car in and out of there. But we also couldn't drive down this road for 2 days. Local residents.
Going away. That's right. Turn around. Turn around. Gone.
Certainly better than just staying out in the cold. If you'd like to come inside, we'll see some pictures of Rika and John Hadukovich. I can show you on the wall, and feel free to browse through the gift shop. If there's any questions again. At the time, and she stayed outside for 45 minutes and waited for help, and she got frostbite on her hands and feet until anybody came and her house burned to the ground. She was taken to Fairbanks, but that one, I would imagine, that's a pretty old one.
And them should be so strong, they're so light.
Yeah.
They don't weigh
Yes,
anything.
it's just all been restored. It's all been restored. Original floor.
Of course, I guess when they were newer, they were wooden dried out.
Yes.
Isn't that like our truck?
Great.
Yeah, nice.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Good.
Very good. Excuse me. Yeah. Here's the nice thing. I don't know. Well, I don't know what it is. Okay. Oh. I'll look at yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. A little dumb.
That's a pig.
Yeah, probably feel like it for long.
I imagine after they run through, they gotta replace it. I would imagine so. No, but you notice it's not straight, but no, it's the shears that goes along. Mile 1422.
Oh, I think, no, it's a very small town. There's the Tasty Creek.
I could have a soft yogurt myself.
Actually, I'd probably wait until Dawson City and then be able to drive there.
Check the older dogs out. Hi, pups. They'll probably run around. If you can scoop them up and want to get your picture with them, go ahead and do that. They'll be a little bit shy out here because they've never been out of the pen. We've got some pups coming down here in about a week, some little blue-eyed ones.
Oi.
They won't. They'll stay right here. Later on, when we let them run around the building, they'll get pretty brave. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Do they, Mike?
Where? The little booties.
No, the booties, they get used to the dog booties or the moccasins on there. Some dogs don't like them, but generally after they've been out a while, they'll be fine. The bad part about it is, in the wintertime, many times you have open stream, open water to cross when you're on the trail. And once you go through open water, you got to stop the team, take the dog moccasins off, and dry the dog's feet, run them through loose snow, and then put dry booties on. Sled dogs are in their prime at about 5 years old. They're over the hill at about 9 or 10, and they lead their life to about 14 or 15 years old. We can use males or females.
our last 10 miles from Kobuk back to Shungnak in a dog sled about twice the size of this one with 16 dogs pulling us, and I was wearing a fur parka that I had borrowed from an Eskimo lady. And that was my introduction to Alaska. I've been here ever since. After about 11 years of teaching in Eskimo villages, we got down into this part of the country, and we taught in an Indian village that's back in the hills over here, about 15 minutes by air. But my husband, in the meantime, had learned to fly, had his own airplane, and eventually we quit teaching, went up the road here about 25 miles toward Fairbanks and started our own roadhouse on the Alaska Highway and an air service. We had 4 children by this time. Every time we left a village, we had one more child. We ended up with a daughter and 3 sons. Incidentally, I taught my own children at home by correspondence for 15 years. They never went to school till they went to college. After 15 years at the roadhouse, my husband was in an accident, an explosion in our shop. He lost his life as a result of it. And at that point, the 3 sons took over the air service. They still have it right down the road here, about a half mile, and they operate under the name 40 Mile Air. They've added a helicopter to it. As you might know,
Looks like you found a friend.
All right. Yeah, but there aren't too many just known everything.
It's 5 minutes after 8 at night. Tok, Alaska. Looking the main streets. Tok. Population 1,000. This is an Eskimo cache. They store their food in there in the wintertime, in the summertime, so that all kinds of animals, so it's safe from all kinds of animals. Sod house construction.
It's cattle front is what it's called. Do they have to get used to it, or they just you start feeding them when they're little? Yeah, that's the same thing now. Yeah, you tend to feed sled dog just about anything. Then when they're pups, and then when they're older, they're not so finicky. Not so finicky eaters, are you guys? How old is it? What, together or
burn nothing. But I'll bet you that's what some of those, there's fire. Yeah, been a fire burning ring out. Go for it. How many hours now? We get started. We thought we were going to get started in the morning.
handle the problem or catch can, they'll fly them on down to things.
Dawson City, Yukon Territory, Canada. Area, Great Gold Strike.
What do you do, Pam, when you did justice? Pick up a load and go back?
You got me all the way to Fraser.
I know, but it's something. And he takes up so on all sides.
Will do.
Get out of the way, and what do? You walk right in front of it.
With this line here, I can't show you the different levels. I can't see the permafrost and the muck, but I can see the pagers. There's a dark dirt here right behind the loader. What he's doing is carrying that over to what is known as a rocker box. There's a fellow up some stairs there. Can y'all see him? He's kind of playing with this thing. That is actually a sprinkler system. That pater goes into the rocker box, which shakes back and forth. That shakes the larger gravels right off the end onto a little conveyor belt and into a pile. The water that he's spraying on top of that is to force the smaller gravels, the silt, and the heavy gold to the bottom of the rocker box. From there, it will move into the sluice box. A sluice box is an angled iron, is a slanted box, not a diagonal. Inside a sluice box are angled iron riffles. As the water and the gold move over the riffles, still spots are created at the end of each riffle. They're angled, the water moves over, and a still spot is created. Because the gold is so heavy, it will sink to the bottom of that still spot and get caught in an astroturf matting that's at the bottom of the sluice spot. The rocks and the heavier gravels just slide right off the end of the sluice spot. In an operation like this, About every 50 hours, they lift the riffles and pull out the astroturf matting. Then they start what is known as the cleanup. That astroturf matting is washed off in a bathtub. They just have a couple bathtubs lined up in the cleanup room. They wash off that astroturf matting, and then they begin panning. So like I said, they still do panning. Primitive, but it's the most effective method. They pan all of the flakes of gold, and then larger flakes of gold. The incidence of finding nuggets today is very low. The permafrost is quite thick, but you can see where the dirt starts getting lighter in color, that's where the pay dirt is. The decay is very thick and dark and rich looking.
Everyone know what the difference between a dredge and a drag is? Spreadsheet.
I mentioned just a moment ago that dredging ceased entirely in the Klondike River Valley in 1966. The number 4 dredge ceased operations in about 1959. It started working in about 1913, so it had a fairly long working life. Dredging is virtually non-existent. I believe there's one operating dredge anywhere in the north, including Alaska, at this point. Excuse me. Killing me, students. Dredging is only effective, or can only be done, period, on a flat area. You cannot take a complex piece of machinery like this up onto the hillside. It just won't move. And the creek beds have basically been mined out. Any mining that we've seen, you can see they're cutting into the hillside now. They're not working on the creek surface. Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay, really quickly, how a dredge basically works is as follows. You have the gold-bearing gravel out in the front of the dredge, at the bow end. This is what's known as a bucket line. The buckets move this way, scooping down to a depth of about 57 feet, picking up the gold-bearing gravel, bringing it into the main housing. The buckets then empty out into what is known as a trommel. It's a revolving screen. The screen has holes punched in it. Anything that is small enough, gold, small gravel, to go through those holes sinks down into the sluice box. Anything larger goes out this end through a stacker and forms the tailing piles that we've been seeing all along. This long piece here is what's called a spud, or a point. That's the only thing that keeps the dredge anchored. Okay? This is a pond. The dredge is a barge. As it's scooping up gravel, it's reaching down to water level and creating this pond that it floats in, anchored only by the spud. This area here, what says number 7, I'm kind of short. This number 7 is the main control room where the winchman works. He controls the entire operation. If anything goes wrong, if a dredge tips over or sinks, as has happened, it's the winchman's fault. Okay, does everyone understand the basics? Yeah. Okay, let's disgorging the larger gravels to form the tailing piles. Inside this stacker is a conveyor belt, just carrying those large gravels out to the end. At one time, the whole stacker was covered over with the tin, like that one end. Part of the reason for that is insulation. They operated until about November. Right behind you, well, holding up to 4,600 pounds of gravel, gold-bearing gravel. I would step over there, but it's kind of marshy, and show you how much taller the bucket used to be, but it's about 6 to 8 inches. Now, when those buckets are biting into gravel, it's going to wear down the bucket. About every 2 months, I'm told, 18 feet of the dredge are right now below ground. It's being silted in. When this dredge ceased working in 1959, it
just simply stops right here in its pond. Since that time, the pond has silted in, and the first deck, the entire first deck, has been filled. Inside, and he's going to have a pond down below here that is just recycling the water. Okay, the water sprays out into the rocker box. That rocker box, remember I described earlier, moves very slowly, moving those rocks off the end, forming a small tailing pile. At the side there, you can see at the bottom, on the left-hand side, is a small sluice box. That water is forcing the gold down to the bottom of the rocker box, into the sluice box, where it will be recovered. The open hillside. That pulls the pay dirt off the hillside directly into a sluice box, negating the use of any heavy equipment.
And the wash.
Shake and bake?
Yeah, not quite. Okay, what you want to do first is fill your pan up with water. Okay. And then you're going to shake all the gold to the bottom. And don't worry about any water falling out. Put your pan on a bit of an angle. And don't let any of your gravel blow out. All you want is your water to blow. Okay?
Gentlemen, they gave me this $20 bill.
Okay, then
Yeah.
there is the wash. Okay? After you're shaking yours about maybe 6 times, start to wash
Excuse me
it.
to interrupt for a moment. Did you all see that? We were talking about the honesty of Yukoners. He just got his change back. Anyway, go on.
Okay, now what you're going to do is the wash, okay? All your gold is going to the bottom during the shake. Now you want to wash the topsoil off. Don't worry about losing your gold because you're not. What you're going to do is bring the water into the very top of the gravel and dip it. Don't change the angle of your pan, so keep it at an angle. And the rocks, the topsoil is going to go up. The top of the gravel is going to go up. And then you start shaking it again. Keep it on an angle.
That way?
There you go. There we go. We're getting some just keep it.
Goodness. Don't sneeze, don't breathe, don't do anything.
Ginny, tip it down just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't get very, yeah. You can really see it. Okay, go forward. Okay. Hope it.
Beautiful flat by the name of Dick North. He knows a lot about the history of Jack London. The smaller building here is Jack London's original cabin from out on Henderson Creek. Half of the logs are here. The other half is down in Berkeley. He found the work a little too hard. He didn't like it once he got here. Very quickly left, like the cremation of Sam McGee, the shooting of Dan McGrew. Robert Service came here. Originally he worked in the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce as a teller. He worked there for a year. And then he found this cabin.